The Five Rings Podcast, Road to Tokyo on the Sports Podcasting Network. Your weekly fix leading up to the 2020 Olympic Games with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramée. Follow us and listen to us live on Twitter at Five Rings Podcast and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network for more content.
Good day, good night. Welcome to the Five Rings Podcast. I'm Kevin Laramée, joined by Duane Rollins. Duane, they're not going to change the branding. They're going to keep it Tokyo 2020. So I'm not going to change the voiceover. I'm going to keep it Tokyo 2020 also.
Fair enough. It's more of an idea than a date now, but we have a date for the games.
We have dates for the games. We have dates for the Paralympic Games. Basically, at 365 days, and you get the date for 2021 Tokyo. The games will start, well, maybe a couple days before, but the Olympic ceremony, opening ceremony, on July 23rd, 2021, August 28th, 2021 will be the closing ceremony of the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. The games of the 32nd Olympiad, that will not change, and it's happening literally a year later, 365 days. So it hasn't been announced for all the events and anything, Duane. But I can pretty much guarantee that if you're an athlete, listen to us right now, wondering when your event's going to take place, just add 365 days or just subtract one day to the day that it was supposed to be held in 2020, and you might have a very high probability of the date of your event.
Yeah, just it might not be a Tuesday now. It might be a Wednesday. The Olympic calendar is almost identical. Like we've watched enough games now that we know when these events happen. Rhythmic gymnastics is the final day. That type of thing.
The marathon is the morning of the last day. So no, exactly.
Yeah, along with the men's football final and other stuff like that. Wrestling is at the end of the games. The two big ones, track and field and swimming. We know swimming starts it and track and field ends it, and they cross over by 2 days in the middle. We know this. This has been for years. So just basically add 365 to it, and you've got your time. And look, this is good that they came out quickly with it. We gave them a little bit of criticism, I guess, two regular shows ago. Forget the special show. We said that they needed to water get off the pot pretty quick when it comes to this for the fairness of the athletes. Well, they've used the pot, and I think we all applaud them for that.
Yeah, good job for using the pot. Good job for not making a mess. We're really happy about the dates. I was talking to, I don't want to mention names, but I was talking to a few friends I have in the Olympic world in general, and the consensus is this is exactly what needed to happen. That happened. Now, hopefully, individual federations, international federations do move their events, and it has already started doing. So here, let's go through a couple of news points and we can continue to talk about now. First of all, the 2021 FINA, the Fédération Internationale of the Swimming World Championship, Swimming, Diving, Water Sports World Championship, that was supposed to be in 2021, is looking for new dates, for revised dates. It might be still in 2021, but later. Of course, the FINA Championship were slated for July 16th. So I think that will change because it was July 16th to August 1st, overlapping with the game. So that will not happen. The 2021 FINA World Championships will take place on other dates, and they're already looking for these dates. Same for the World Championships of Athletics. The IAAF Federation has announced that it's looking for dates in 2022. They're talking with Oregon, and it's going to be 22 in the Pacific Northwest in the United States. Of course, a famously popular area for track and field because of Nike over the years, since the beginning of the 90s, and the whole Oregon and connection with, of course, Phil Knight and more. So that's where that comes from. So it'll be a fascinating times in 2021, but FINA World Championship and, of course, the World Athletic Championship will be postponed.
And those are the two biggest ones. Obviously, other sports will have World Cups and World Championships that they might have to twig here and there, but really, swimming to a lesser extent, but track and field for sure. Athletics really are the big players when you talk about the World Championships, and I think it makes perfect sense for track to move to 2022. I would expect swimming might follow suit. I shouldn't say swimming because it also includes diving and water polo, and they can now call it artistic swimming. I don't know if people are aware of that. It's no longer synchronized swimming. It's now artistic swimming is the official name of the sport. So when you dive,
you don't have to be synchronized because I think you can. I remember when you could do solo
events. Yeah,
solo event. How are you synchronized? You're by yourself. I never got that, but yes.
Yes, exactly. Artistic swimming, which does make sense, and
men are now involved in that, which I'm happy about.
There's a duet thing. Not in the Olympics, but at the world level, you can compete as a man, and with the Olympics movement towards more and more mixed gender sports, I think that it's probably only a matter of time until artistic swimming includes men as well, and that's fine. That'll be good. I look forward to the day.
It might have been the sport I practiced, Duane, because when I was a kid, I used to be in pool all the time, and the amount of time I tried to be like Sylvie Fréchette in the mid-90s, and I tried to have my left arm do my left foot do the candle or something, I would have been really good. That's what I was trying to do my entire childhood in pools.
Yeah, I dare any human that has been in a pool to tell me that they have not at some point tried to put their legs straight up in the air and keep them straight for a second. Come on, folks, everyone's done that. We probably were cheating by touching the bottom of the pool, though.
Well, yeah, if you're in an above ground pool, it's really easy. Just put your damn hands down and you're okay. But try that in the deep end of a in ground pool, then come talk to me.
No, exactly. It's do anything that the Olympians do once and tell me that they're not athletes. That is the general consensus of all of this. At any rate, yeah, it makes sense to get back to my point for swimming to move to 2022. And look, then you get back on the cycle, right? Like in tracks meet, you're going to have 2 world championships in back-to-back years. That's fine. It's just the way it works out this particular cycle, and then you're back on track again because this is a unique situation. It requires a unique answer. Now, the one question I will have to extend this to multi-sport games, multi-sport events, the mid-range year is, of course, Commonwealth Games years. So I would question whether the Commonwealth Games might also look to move their schedule around here, and that would be a far more complicated thing to do. They would be affected by that.
They will be affected, sorry. And another international game like this, we rarely talk about this on this show, and I don't know why, but I guess it's something that wasn't really on our radar, and we don't even know about it. The World Games, which I'm learning about them even today, quite honest. Like, I'm a big sports guy. I've never heard about the World Games before, which is basically an Olympic Games for non-Olympic sports. It was supposed to be held in 2021 in Birmingham, Alabama. The last occurrence was in 2017, every 4 years also. And it's going to be in July, but now because of the postponed Tokyo Olympics, the International World Games Association is going to work with the IOC to make sure that both events take place. The president, Jose Perurena of the International World Games Association, by the way, he is also the president of the I had it here, a Canoe Federation. So he's International Canoe Federation president and International World Games Association president, and also right now affected by COVID-19. He's in the hospital because of this virus, but he's talking about how the International World Games should be postponed and they'll work with the IOC to make sure both are taking place. But yeah, you're right. The entire calendar for years of the sports world might be affected.
For sure. And again, look, I think in some cases, maybe if you can have them both in the same year to continue your cycles, you should. If not, then you make a one-time adjustment. Everything's fine. In this case, 2022, as I mentioned, it's going to be a busy sports year now. Very much. We also have Winter Olympics that year. Knock on wood.
Also,
so just that minor little thing, the other Olympic Games.
Here, you like dates, I know. So, from the end of the Paralympic Games on September 5th, 2021, to the start of the 2022 Olympic Games in Beijing, we're talking about 152 days. You can find that calculation on Devin Herou's Twitter, a now famous journalist for CBC in curling and the Olympic world, which we love to have Devin, and we love to follow him, and we'll have him on the show eventually. We were supposed to have him a few years ago, but anyways, we love it, Devin. And Devin's calculation, 152 days between big assignment for CBC. That's going to be a crunch time for sure.
I believe we had him on from the Paralympics. Is what we had him on before at one point. But yes. You know what? It's even that distance is even less when you consider it Paralympics to Olympics. So yeah, it's just like my childhood again, Kevin. Just the opposite way. It'll be summer first instead of winter. It used to be the Winter Olympics, and then about 150 days later at the Summer Olympics. So it'll be like kind of an old timey feel. I'm looking forward to it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather have it this summer, but hey, now that it is. Now that we're going to have some fun with it.
We don't have a choice anyway. So, It'll break for once. We won't have the Euro to cover at the same time of an Olympics. So at least we'll have a not as busy summer. Well, we actually will be because it's postponed too. Never mind that.
Yeah, we have the Euro too. Yeah, don't you worry. We'll have lots to talk about.
Yeah, the Euro's been postponed too. So never mind.
You know what? And thankfully, we will never complain about having too much sports to talk about ever again, ever.
No, ever again. I think you're right. I'm just going to read quickly some excerpts from the IOC's official news because there's a few important aspects here and the wording is interesting. So here's the actual article. The leaderships of the key parties came together via telephone conference earlier today, joined by IOC President Tomoe Bach, Tokyo 2020 President Yoshiro Mori, and Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko, and Olympic and Paralympic Minister Hashimoto Saiko had agreed on a new schedule. The decision was taken based on three main considerations and in line with the principles established by the IOC Executive Board on March 17, 2020, and confirmed at its meeting today. These were supported by all the International Summer Olympic Sports Federation, IFs, and all the National Olympic Committees, NOCs. To protect the health of the athletes and everyone involved, and to support the containment of the COVID-19 virus. 2, to safeguard the interest of the athletes and of Olympic sport. And 3, the global international sports calendar. These new dates give the health authorities and all involved in the organization of the Games the maximum time to deal with the consistently changing landscape and the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The new dates, exactly 1 year after those originally planned for 2020, so July 24th to August 9th and August 25th to September 6th for the Paralympic Games, also have the added benefit that any disruption that a postponement will cause to the international sports calendar can be kept to a minimum in the interest of the athletes and the international federations. Additionally, they will provide sufficient time to finish the qualification process. The same heat mitigation measures as planned for 2020 will be implemented. You know what that means? That sentence, the same heat mitigation measures as planned for 2020 will be implemented, and pretty much means that, exactly, race, walk, and marathon will be in Sapporo, which leads to another problem because Sapporo, the design of the parkour, of the actual race parkour for the marathon was supposed to end in a park and in front of a building that's supposed to be refurbished and renovated. That building, it was supposed to be renovated last January, but when Sapporo was designated by the IOC as the host of these two events, they postponed the refection of this building. It's a red brick building. It's a very popular one. It's a tourist attraction for the region of Hokkaido in Sapporo. So it's one of the most visited tourist attraction in Sapporo, and they delayed the refurbishing of it for the Olympic Games, so it's ready. Because it's supposed to be plastered by workers and scaffolding all around to have the bricks redone, right? So it wouldn't look good at all during the games. Mm-hmm. But now what do? If they postpone it more, it might delay everything. And we're talking about millions and millions of dollars of contracts that has to be either postponed even more, a year more. Maybe it's too dangerous for the structure and everything. Or maybe you'll have to to renovate it. You can't wait. You can't postpone it anymore. But then you'll have to redesign the actual parkour for the marathon or for the race walk. And it becomes also a big logistical nightmare for the businesses that are going to be needing to be closed for 3 days. It's going to be 3 days where this parkour is blocked off. The streets are blocked off for a 3-day minimum. So this will have to be rethought 100% for Sapporo. Even though it's a year later, this actually complicates things for Sapporo, and it might cost Sapporo their bid for 2030's Winter Game, which they wanted to apply and use the success of the race walk and the marathon hosting capacities that they were going to do in 2020, parlay this into a bid project, and parlay this into the presentation to the IOC. But this is happening in the early 2021s. In about spring 2021, we'll know where the 2030 Winter Olympic Games take place. But for that, at least the bid presentation, and Sapporo was going to use that to have a better bid because of the postponement of the Olympic Games and the 2021 dates of in 2020. Sapporo might not even bid at all for the 2030 Olympic Games that they wanted to apply for.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think that's going to be a minor thing from a bidding perspective. Bidding right now is going to come down to willingness as much as anything else. Willingness and capability still, you still have to have that. The biggest strike against Sapporo for our Winter Games right now would really be time zone. The IOC would very much, I suspect, after this string of Asian Games, they do have a couple outside that before, but it still is pretty close to a lot of games in that time zone, which is an important market, as all are. But there certainly are other markets that are going to struggle with this particular game. So not to make this all about NBC, basically, is what I'm talking about here, but that will play a role in that bid there. Look, in terms of the other logistical issues that you spoke of, my hope is, for whatever limited influence this show could possibly have on those that make such decisions. I'm sure they're all rabid listeners, but if we do have their ear, I would hope that they would, and I suspect that they will, try to make as little disruption to people's lives in Japan as possible, because this is an unprecedented situation. The Olympics are already a pretty disruptive force wherever they go. It is an issue with the Olympic movement that they have become so disruptive that a lot of places just don't want them anymore. So just be mindful of that. That would be my message to our friends in the IOC, to be mindful of disruption, to be respectful in this very unique situation that we're in right now, and hopefully they will be.
I absolutely agree. And now that we have dates, and we have dates long in advance, even before we had the date, Sebastian, co-president of the International Athletics Track and Field Federation, mentioned that, we're willing to postpone to 2022 if the Olympics postpone to 2021. So, no, you're absolutely right, and this will keep it to a minimum across the board. But, watching other piece of news on the Olympic movement, I stumbled upon a funny one, Duane. I'm going to read it, and then I'll let you laugh, and then we can talk about it, all right? So, sure. The Australian Olympic Committee on Monday refuted suggestions it had colluded with Canadian counterparts to withdraw from the Tokyo Games to pressure organizers into a postponement. Both countries said last week in statements released in quick succession that they would not send teams to the Olympic Games in July because of the coronavirus pandemic. A day later, the IOC postponed the Games until 2021. The chain of events led to media speculation that the country's Olympic committees had been in cahoots to pressure organizers to call off the Games, or had acted in concert with the IOC to give the global body leverage to postpone Tokyo. Any assertions that a decision by the AOC, the Australian Olympic Committee, to tell its athletes to plan for a Tokyo Olympic Games in 2021 was done in concert with either the IOC or the Canadian Olympic Committee are completely incorrect, the AOC said in a statement. The decision, it added, followed a sequence of events including restrictions on international travel by the Australian government, quarantine requirements at borders, and closure of training facilities. It had also noted a decision by the IOC last Monday to consider scenario planning for the 2020 Games, including a possible postponement. The effect of these measures, as outlined, informed the executive's conclusion that an Australian Olympic team could not depart our shores for a Games at any time within the next 6 months, at least, the AOC added. So there was no collusion, no cahooting happening between Australia and Canada.
That is a bit silly. I don't know who. First off, my two comments. First off, even if that were the case, so what benefit would it be, right? Like, it's not like, Australia and Canada have teamed up in some great conspiracy to delay the games for a year so that they win more medals. Like, well, what is the purpose of even trying to create a conspiracy here? What benefit would it gain either country? I mean, yes, I do think there's probably a fairness to the idea that the richer nations will probably benefit more from they have more capability to sustain an athletic program for another year, so they might actually have an even slightly greater advantage than they usually do. But they already have a great advantage. No one's conspiring to get there. I haven't heard this here at all. So obviously this story in Australia, they felt that they needed to comment on it, but I don't think it really needs much comment beyond that. Like I said, even if they were conspiring, it was a conspiracy of appealing to common sense more than anything else. And as we saw the reaction from some of our most prominent athletes in Canada, we had one on this show last week, with Evan Dunphy, the 50K walk racer. We hear, gold medalists from this country, past and present, both being not only complimenting the decision, calling it courageous, and saying they were proud to represent the COC. You don't often hear them say proud to represent the COC. They're proud to represent the country, but they were in this particular case. So this is, I think, just common sense prevailing, correct?
Usually it's quite the opposite sentiment. Usually when you hear athletes in Canada talking about the Federation, it's never for good reason, or for their Olympic Committee, it's never for good reason. Now it is. And we had an American athlete like Lolo Jones as one example. Very prominent athlete, very loudly suggesting that they hope their government would take the same stance as Canada did. And I thought it was just worth a chuckle. It was worth a mention, but not more than that.
Yeah, it's not worth more than that. Look, yeah, we're all in this, there's stages of grief, right? And I think we're all in this, we're getting into the acceptance stage of grief across everything when it comes to sports right now. And the Olympics were, for me, and I think for a lot of people, the big one that had to fall, had to move so that we could really wrap our heads around the reality that this is probably going to make a lot of things null and void. We have a soccer show, and they keep talking bravely in the UK, or England, I should say, in this particular case, in England, that they're going to get the Premier League back and going. I'm now at the point where I'm pretty sure that will not happen. Yeah. And it's only a matter of whether they hand Liverpool a trophy or not at this point, right? I think the Olympic movement had to make this move so that a lot of us could just sort of accept the fact that 2020 as a sports entity, at least until the fall, is probably done. Maybe the late summer if we're lucky. Yeah. That's kind of where we're at right now.
We had Charles Bohm on our regular Soccer Today show earlier today on our daily soccer podcast, Duane and I. And Charles mentioned something that is very fascinating, and I think we can include it here in the Olympic conversation and maybe use it as our daily lives will continue to move on one day. We're so caught up in the flow of the news that's happening on the day-to-day, on the grind, on the daily aspect of everything, the news cycle. We're so adamant on not missing the daily news. We're so adamant on consuming everything as it happens that we forget to go for seconds. We forget to sometimes just go back to things we like and to rewatch for a third time, to break down, to analyze, to use what's called perspective and hindsight, and to put it to good use. Maybe now is the time to do so.
Yeah, well, off the top of this, in this show, I started talking about artistic swimming in this. That's because one of the things I've been doing during my downtime is going through all of the final World Cup events from 2019 in the summer sports and watching them in their entirety. I kind of know the results for some that I've seen so far. I don't know the results for some because, obviously we don't watch every World Cup. We can't. We're not, even if we were paid good money to do nothing but, we'd still have trouble watching every World Cup event.
It's still only 24 hours in every day. And
we have lives and families, right? Exactly. So, but this is an opportunity to go back and, I've made a challenge to myself when it comes to this show, to use this time to really even provide you better coverage of sports that I don't necessarily understand as well. So to that situation, I watched the entire artistic team, which is the event that's in the Olympics, swimming championships from the last one that were out there that was available to me, and was amazed by what I saw. I still, clearly thought the routine I thought was the most entertaining and best finished last. So I clearly don't understand the nuances yet. It was the robot routine for the U.S. team.
Entertainment has nothing to do with it, right? If you're entertained by it, it's probably because they didn't do it properly. You have to be like, I don't know. I don't get it the same as you.
I actually could tell the ones that were better in a general sense, but yet to my eyes, the Americans doing their robots underground, who finished, I believe, 14th or 15th. So that wasn't necessarily the best one, but it was entertaining to me. But nonetheless, the point being that I'm taking the time to try and reflect on those kind of sports that I don't necessarily have as good a handle on, so that when the time comes to talk about these next summer now, I should say summer from now, summer 2021, because it's still spring. So next summer would be this year. I will have a better handle on them and provide you all with better coverage of that. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm taking that time to reflect and look back and enjoying watching archery, for instance, which I also watched last week.
I just want to go back to the artistic swimming here. You said they had a robot yes. type of, please tell me it was Mr. Roboto, their song. Oh, come
I'm trying to remember if it was. I don't think it was, but it was very robotic. That routine is on the YouTubes alone. And also, for the record, I know it's just YouTube. I just like calling it the YouTubes.
It's funny. Exactly. It's like the internet's. No.
Yeah. So go on the YouTubes and type in American artistic swimming robot, and you'll be able to watch that routine. And I found it quite enjoyable. Quite entertaining, but the judges did not agree with me.
And then you put it on mute and you play Mr. Roboto by, was it Styx? Who was singing that?
I believe it was Styx, yes.
Wow.
But even I'm too young for that.
I pulled that off. I pulled that, from where? Because I'm not necessarily a big Domo Arigato Mr. Roboto fan, but I guess I am.
There you go. That prog rock from the 70s is that prog? I don't even know. From 70s
don't
rock.
Ask me. I'm born in 84, so I wouldn't know. I just used to listen to a lot of radio. But on that note, when I'm starting to talk about Styx, it's because we need to wrap the show. You can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramée, and this show at Five Rings Podcast. We'll be back next week with another edition of our Road to Tokyo 2020. We'll keep the same title. It's just a longer road. The road just got longer, but it got more interesting. It got deeper. Maybe it got better. We'll talk to you next week. And until then, as always, enjoy your Olympic movement. Stay safe. Wash your hands. And, of course, don't forget to also wash your phones.